The American soldier accused of leaking thousands of secret documents to the WikiLeaks website has pleaded guilty to some of the lesser charges he faces at a military hearing in Washington. But Bradley Manning, who has already spent 3 years in prison without trial, is still pleading not guilty to the most serious charge of aiding the enemy, which carries a life sentence. Let's join our Washington correspondent now, Matt Fry. And what's he been saying? It's been long in the coming, this.
Long of the coming and long of the saying, Krish. I mean, 35 pages of a document that he read out in court. And essentially what he's saying is that he didn't try to damage America. He tried to make the debate in America about its foreign policy, about its military policy, more fertile. And doing so, he released all these documents. Now, what's really interesting is he also told us that he had tried to contact the New York Times and the Washington Post and Politico here in Washington first before going to Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. Now, he left a recorded message on the answering machine of the New York Times ombudsman, their kind of editorial watchdog. He talked to a junior reporter at the Washington Post who didn't return his call, and he never got to see Politico because the weather was too bad. Had he done any of those three, just imagine how different history would be, because they would have presumably leaked some of those documents, but they would have filtered them first. They would have protected their source, Bradley Manning, and this would indeed have become a debate about America's foreign policy and military policy, which is what Bradley Manning said he always wanted. Instead, it's become one walloping debate about the nature of leaks.
What's his strategy with the case now? Is it about how long he spends in jail?
Well, you bet it is. I mean, if he is found guilty on the charge that he didn't plead guilty to, which is aiding and abetting the enemy, then he spends the rest of his life in jail. If he's not found guilty on that, but he's pled guilty on these other charges, which carry a maximum of 20 years, if you then deduct the time that he's already spent, he might be looking at maybe 5 or 10 years. I think what he's realized is that his best strategy is to plead First Amendment rights. In other words, this is about the freedom of speech, and we know how much Americans love going to constitutional amendments for their particular cases. And secondly, he thinks that he's got some rapport with the judge. He has waived his rights to a jury in a military court. It is all about the judgment of the one judge, and the one judge has already decided that spending 112 days naked in solitary confinement under suicide watch was far too serious. So perhaps he thinks he's got some sort of leeway there. And of course, the trial itself starts in June, so we will be following up on that one then.
Krish. Thanks, Matt.